What is good? What is up? It's Jordan, Texans Thoughts, and we're back with another episode of Believe in Texans. Today, I'm very excited to preview Houston Texans rookie minicamp with our special guest, Keith Sanchez. Keith, how you doing today? Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, no problem, man. I'm doing good. Ready to talk some ball with you, man. Dive into these rookies and see how they're going to perform in this upcoming year.
Dude, let's do it. I'm super excited for a Houston Texans fan like myself. There might not be a lot to get excited about the season, but the rookies, that's number one for me, man. So I'm excited to talk about it. But first, I want to just quickly say you guys can check out the Believe in Texans show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as on YouTube. We're almost at 6,000 subs on YouTube, so I appreciate you guys, all the support you guys been showing. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Can't do it without y'all. But let's introduce Keith. Let's talk about you and your journey, covering the NFL draft and working with LSU. How was that experience for you, like as a lead personnel member for their team? What were kind of like the main lessons that you learned working for such an amazing program?
Oh man, that can probably be an hour within itself, right? Just how many lessons I learned and just experiences that stay with me for a
Mhm.
lifetime. But man, it was really good, and obviously I was there through some really good years. I like to say that I seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like I seen us in 2016, where we're a good football team, and then 2017, 2018, you knew that we were
Yeah.
just missing a quarterback, and then that magical 2019 season, where I would like to say we're probably the best college football team of all time, right?
Ooh, damn, Keith, damn, don't hold back on them.
And then the 2020 season, right? It was not up to that standard. Just to have the
Mm,
championship standard, and then I believe we went 5-5 after that.
yep.
That's why I say I seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I learned a lot through that process. So me just being the person I am, I was always observing. Just input, but I was also taking a lot from other people because I feel as though whenever you're in a
Mhm.
room with other talented minds, it's always key
Yeah.
to know that you're smart, right? But then also have the opportunity to be quiet, listen, observe, and
Mhm.
take some knowledge from somebody else. So man, it was so many things that I took away from LSU and my 5 year stint there.
Yeah, that's a great point to be a listener. A lot of
Yeah,
the time it's easy to get caught up in, man, I made it here. Like I know what I'm doing. I'm smarter than
yeah,
all these guys. I'm the big man in the room. But a lot of the time, there's always someone smarter than us. Always someone bigger, stronger, faster. You know what I mean? So I love that. I love your openness there for sure. But man, yeah, talk about what was it like to win a national championship, man. That must be an amazing feeling to be a part of that.
man. It probably hit more so after than during the process, right?
Mhm.
Because Coach O was big on the next week, the next week, the next week. And we hear those cliches, but football is such an emotion driven game,
Mhm.
one way or the
Mhm.
other, right? Like you can make
Yep.
emotional decisions that can hurt you, you can make emotional decisions that help you, but we always try to stay even keel and approach every game like it was a top notch game. The way we prepared our players were, in that notion, and I think that's why you never seen us really look too rattled, right, throughout
Mhm.
the season. And so, we just took it one week at a time. That's something Coach O always talked about. And then next thing you look up, we're national champions, right? And it's kind of like, wow, man, that was kind of cool. And then, you went through the ring ceremony, but we always talked about it in the building that we really didn't get our opportunity to have our kind of celebration moment because
Mm.
COVID hit
COVID.
right after. Yeah, so we didn't get our spring opportunity to kind of wear our rings around and
Yeah,
do
parade a
yeah,
little, get a little drunk.
yeah, do a little something. But COVID hit right after, and then after COVID, I mean, it was kind of weird. We went 5-5, right? So it was like that happened quick. That
Mm.
transition happened quick, man. But just being reflecting on it now, with the draft network, I went to the SEC
Yeah.
championship game this year, and to know that I was in that stadium 2-3 years ago, but I was on the sideline helping, LSU win. So man,
Mhm.
it's just cool when you get in those moments and it's real reflection opportunities.
For sure, for sure. And I think that's a perfect segue to, I guess, your next chapter, in your life with TDN. And I heard you're going to law school as well.
Yeah, yeah. So that was when I did it. Everybody called me crazy, um, and not so much about the law school part, but because of why I left, and that
Right.
was citing the NIL situation and just knowing that college football was about to change one way or the other. But
Hmm.
I knew that it was going to be a totally different ball game. So I decided to leave because I knew that it was going to be important, to get a good understanding of contractual law, understanding how to, maneuver rosters. And because the talent evaluation part, I felt really confident in. But I knew that obviously with players getting paid, it was going to be a contraction standpoint to it, or contracts, I'm sorry, element that was going to be added to it, and that was going to be needed, a big part of roster management. So man, I decided to leave, and then now you look 2 years later, a year and a half later, and now you hear about NIL deals flying left and right.
Yeah.
And I have people hitting me up now like, man, okay, well, you kind of knew what you were saying.
You're seeing into the future there.
Yeah, just kind of, and it was only because that was something that I specialized in just in my 5 years. So, you know your industry better than anybody else knows your industry, basically, because you work it every single day. So that was just something that I kind of foreseen coming.
For sure. It sounds like you're putting together, you're making yourself a more well-rounded individual. And the way I hear you speak, you sound like an NFL coach already. You say you got the talent evaluation part down. Now you got the lawyer in your back pocket. God damn, Keith, what is your kind of like end goal here? What's your dream goal? Working for an NFL team? What are you thinking? I want to hear.
Man, I would say this. When I left LSU, I knew that, it was for football, getting back into football, whether that's working for a team, whether that's college or the NFL, but working with the draft network where I am now, seeing the I guess it's a cross, right, between the personnel and then the media side of it, right? And I'm kind of enjoying it in the moment right now because it's kind of cool to be able to interact with, with people like yourself and really talk football, because when you're inside of a team building and facility, everything is between us, right? There's we don't get the opportunity to hop on the phone or hop on podcasts and talk about who we like the best, because we're in competition, right? So at LSU, we were competing with Alabama and Texas A&M and Florida and Georgia for the top recruits. So I can't just, hop on a podcast and be like, hey, man, I really like this corner right here because of this. So I'm enjoying being able to, I guess you kind of say get out a little more and just kind of get after. So I'm enjoying this part, and what the future holds for me, man, I told myself, I thought I had an idea, but I really want to take this one step at a time and then just continue to knock out my personal goals and, just let God take me where it's supposed to be.
100%, dude. I love that. I'm a big believer of whatever is supposed to happen will happen. Hardships, you can learn from them. Your achievements, your goals, they will come if you put in the hard work. So I'm a big believer in that, and I'm excited to see you and follow your journey, man. It's awesome. I've been a big fan of TDN for basically since their inception. Just looking up to a lot of the guys who've come and gone through there, Ben Solak, Jordan Reed, and seeing all the heights that they are going at. So I feel like you are definitely next in line. And your buddy Damian Parson that you started the Talent Factor podcast with, dude, I love Dame. I've been a big fan of him, big follower of him. And so it's been great to listen to you guys get that podcast started. Maybe give the viewers here, I believe in Texans, kind of a quick rundown of what that podcast looks to entail.
Yeah, so joining the Draft Network, obviously we have the Draft Dudes, right? That's Kyle Krabs, that's Joe Marino, and they attack football from the NFL perspective. And I went to our CEO page, DeMarcos, and I said, look, I have an extensive background in college football. So I said, why not let's attack it from a different angle, right? So now, the fans of the Draft Network and just college football, period, they get to get a deep insight of the college football and then take that transition along to the NFL. So that way the segue part is kind of the draft, right? And then it kind of just makes sense. So you get the Draft Network and you get everything. You get college football, the transition to the draft, and then you get the transition of them to pro football. So yeah, man, the Talent Factor is focused on college football. We have real discussions. And then I always try to add the human element to our listeners so they kind of understand that, because I think that when we see these people on pedestals and things like that, we kind of forget that there's a human element to it, where people just make decisions based off emotion. And I try to give them experiences that I had, working in a building and how things and situations may unfold. Because if it doesn't make sense, I try to kind of explain that part for them. So man, it's really good. We're having fun. Our season is coming up. College football is coming up.
Sir.
We about to do a lot of great things at Talent Factor.
Dude, I'm really excited to keep up with it for this next cycle. Do you have an early quarterback one?
Yeah, so we're having a bit of a battle with the scouts right now. It's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud.
Yep.
We're really battling it out for man, because both of those guys they do really good things. Obviously Bryce Young won the Heisman last year, but man, I think CJ Stroud can win it this year, right?
Oof.
So
Yep.
I'm gonna be honest. I personally don't have a QB1 right now.
Okay. Okay.
But I guess you just have to kind of lean towards Bryce Young right now because he won the Heisman last year
Mhm.
and he put up the numbers. So definitely go with Bryce Young.
For sure, for sure. Okay, we can further those discussions another time, but let's get back on topic a little bit before we get into the Texans draft class. I do want to ask you one other thing. As someone who has risen through the ranks, been at the peak of college football, working for a college football team as a talent evaluator like yourself, what would be kind of the one piece of advice you would give to aspiring scouts who want to make it, whether it's in the NFL or for college football? What would be your one piece of advice?
Man, I would say work hard, stay ready, and don't be afraid to talk to people, man, because you
Mhm.
never know who's that one person that'll give you that one opportunity.
For sure.
The football industry, more than any other industry, is about who you know, and I'm being completely honest with
Yeah.
people, and I'm being authentic. So, man, don't be afraid to talk to people. Sometimes you have to go out on a whim, show up to possibly the Senior Bowl or just these different
Mhm.
All-Star events in hopes of speaking to somebody. And guess what? You may have 1,000 people that tell you no, but it really just takes that
Just
one
one
yes
yes.
to really jumpstart your career, man. If nobody will believe in you like you will believe in yourself. So, man, don't let anybody else put you in a box. Work hard, stay dedicated to the craft of evaluations, and be willing to get better. And then, yeah, man, just be willing to step out of that box.
For sure, dude. I love that. Absolutely. I'm trying to climb that ladder and trying to do my best. And that's what I always tell other people, other smaller creators who, you just got to put in the work, be consistent, and then make your connections, man. Because all
Yeah,
it takes is that one yes. Everyone
right.
will tell you about how hard the odds are, but at the end of the day, it only takes one yes. And once you're in, you kind of have that in. You can make your connections and branch out from there. And it's man,
I,
it's
I would say one other thing, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but at
no
the
go
same
for
time,
it.
I repeat this. So I have one of my mentors in college football. He's
Mhm.
currently the running back coach for Florida, Coach Jabbar Luke. I've been knowing him a while, and he told me AOAI. He's like, that's the motto to live by. And I said, what does that mean, coach? He said, always on a interview, meaning that
Mm.
you always put out the best representation of yourself, no matter what you're doing. So if you're tweeting out anything, man, put out the best representation of yourself. If you're showing up to an event, put out the best representation of yourself because you never know who's watching. So that's definitely a motto that I always try to live by.
Dude, that's great. That's great. And especially nowadays with how media is and everyone can see anything. Like even if
Yeah,
someone doesn't know, even if you think someone doesn't know you, they can find your stuff just like that. So
yeah.
you always gotta be AOAI. I love that. I love that, Keith. Perfect. Okay, let's transition into kind of the talk about the Texans draft class. Had 9 picks this year. For me, overall, man, I was very, very happy with the draft class. And that's not something I always am. I'm very picky when it comes down to rookies. Usually I don't like, usually maybe in one draft class, there'll be like one of my guys that gets taken. But this draft class, man, there were a few of my guys I absolutely love. Jalen Pitre, love John Metchie, Damian Pierce. Like their mid-round picks there were absolutely money for me. But I kind of want to hear your kind of overall thoughts on the draft class, and we'll get into maybe each of these players a bit more specifically. But what were your overall thoughts on the Texans? How do you think they did this year?
Yeah. So you talked about my draft grade earlier when I gave
Mm-hmm.
them an A minus. And that's because I liked a lot of these guys personally. Each round, these guys were towards the top of that round for me. So you talk about Derek
Mm-hmm.
Stingley, even when there was the Sauce Gardner and
Mm-hmm.
a couple of other corners that were supposed to be top guys, I kind of held strong to Derek Stingley at CB1, and that may possibly because of my LSU connection. I'm watching them in practice every single day. But man, so just to grab that guy in the first round, Kenyan Green, I think this is and it's hard for him to be a sleeper pick because he was in the first round. But
Right.
majority of the draft, he flew under the radar, and
Mm-hmm.
I was questioning myself, and I'm like, nobody's talking about him, so maybe I'm crazy, right? But to snatch this guy up at 15 overall, this guy, like I said, he played left tackle, left guard, and right tackle.
Yep.
And his best game in college was left tackle against Will Anderson. So
Yes.
that lets you know what caliber player you're getting. Jalen Pitre, man, just the type of things he can do. I'm familiar with the Aranda defense, so just him being a multiple guy in that defense, he's a
Mm-hmm.
very smart football player. then John Metchie, man, if I would tell you he's catching in traffic ability away from being a possible number one wide receiver.
Yep.
He's explosive. Like he's top 2-3 explosive receivers in this class. His release is crazy. He's an amazing route runner. He's explosive. So man, I loved what they did just in the draft. And then one of my sleeper guys also is Damian Pierce.
Yes, sir.
And this was kind of cool for me because when I first started at LSU, I believe Damian was, man, I want to say he might have been a junior. And, I watched him into his senior year in high school at I believe he's from Bainbridge, Georgia. And I had him ranked in my top 7 as running backs coming out of high school. And then just to kind of watch him and through the years and through the process, and I believe he got drafted as maybe the number 7th or 8th running back in this year's draft. So it's somebody I've been watching a while and just had my eyes on because I thought he was a really good football player. So, man, from top to bottom, I thought they did a really good job drafting.
Definitely. Yeah. No, dude, you were spot on with your Pierce evaluation. God damn. Okay, Crystal Ball Keith. That's what I'm going to call you.
I like that one. I might have to throw that one out there, man. Just put the little crystal ball by my name.
Use it 100%. 100%. I'll Photoshop your face on a crystal ball for you. I got you. But yeah, let's dive in a little bit more to the first pick, 3rd overall, Derek Stingley. You mentioned you got a chance to watch him at LSU. Can you kind of speak to his, personality? Because he kind of comes off as, a quiet killer. Is that kind of accurate in your eyes?
Yeah, and nothing is wrong with that, right? I think everybody wants the Richard Sherman or the Deion Sanders, but they're all Marshawn Lattimore's, they're all Stephon Gilmore's, they're all Darrelle Revis's, who don't talk a lot, right? They just step on the field, and that's what they do. And just knowing Derek Stingley, I've been knowing him since he's probably 15 years old, right? Because that's how long we had to recruit him, since he was a freshman in high school. And that's just always been his mantra. But I appreciate it because guess what? He's not being anything that he's not, right? He's being true and authentic to himself. And then when he steps on a football field, man, this is a guy that's been working at this since he was 8, 9 years old, because we know his grandpa played in the NFL, his father chased the professional league. So he's been getting groomed for this moment and for this position for a very long time. And man, I'll be honest with you. That 2019 season, we had Christian Fulton on one side, and then he was on the other, right? And you're talking about a true freshman as a corner. And he was playing high school football just a couple months ago, and then just being able to step on the field and cover guys like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Terrace Marshall, and he did it at a high level in practice. And then he goes and covers George Pickens, Justin Ross, and Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, and he's seen it all as an 18-year-old kid. So man, it was just it was special to see, because I can tell you this, just working in college football, it's not many kids that can do it from not only a physical level but a mental level. So man, I like I said, man, just knowing him, he checks all the boxes for me, definitely.
For sure. He's one of the most battle-tested guys this year. You mentioned you had him as your cornerback 1 over Sauce.
Yes.
What were kind of the main traits that you favor Stingley? And I would imagine it's kind of the ball skills, maybe it's the competition that he faced. What was it for you?
And it's ball skills and versatility. Okay. I'll start with ball skills, and I always say this with defensive backs. When the ball's in the air, they do one of two things. They panic or they stay patient.
Yes, sir.
Derek Stingley was one of the most patient players I ever seen with the ball in the football air, and with the football in the air, and he instantly turned into the receiver. Man, that's a very instinctual thing to do, to cover the wide receiver, see the football in the air, and then no longer be worried about the receiver, for you to turn into the receiver, because it happens so quick. But he just did it so effortlessly. So you talk about just elite ball skills, that's him. And then the versatility, I thought he was a really good tackler. And then just his ability to play man, play zone, play press, play off, just have good eyes, come downhill. And he just did it all. I just thought this was a complete football player. So that's why he kind of had the edge over some of these other players like a Sauce, because I just thought that Sauce may have been a little bit more scheme specific. I think he went to a really good spot with the Jets being a cover 3 zone drop type defense. He went to a great spot for himself, but I thought Derek Stingley was the more complete corner.
Okay. I hear you. So then projecting him into Lovie Smith's defense, as the defense historically plays a lot of Tampa 2, would you expect Lovey to switch it up a bit, or because Stingley is so versatile, like you said, he can kind of stick to what he's comfortable with and continue to call out his zone-based coverages?
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting that the Texans went corner at number 3,
Yeah.
just because of Lovie Smith's scheme, knowing he runs a Tampa 2, and that, when you talk about value and a defense and schemes, and I thought they would go with a different position, right?
The end or something,
But,
yeah.
yeah, but they say if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. So I watched the Lovie Smith interview. I think that was earlier today about the rookie mini camps that they
Yep.
did. And he talked about he was going to be a whole lot more versatile in his defense, right? He was going to run some cover 4, some cover 2. They were going to play some man. They were going to leave their corners on the island and just really switch it up. And then that's when the light bulb kind of went off. I said, okay, that's why they chose Derek Stingley at number 3, because he wants to be able to take your number 1 wide receiver, off the field and be able to eliminate him with Derek Stingley, and then use the rest of the players just to kind of play a 10-on-10 type situation, but knowing that I took your best wide receiver out of the game. So initially, I didn't understand the pick, like I said, for Lovie Smith's team, but hearing him talk about it in that interview, things started to make sense for me, and kind of predict what the Houston Texans defense is going to look like this upcoming year.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been one of the biggest storylines for the Texans is, can Lovie Smith, adjust to kind of more of the modern NFL defensive concepts. A lot of people like to say Tampa 2 is outdated, yada, yada, yada. But I feel like last year, it was his first year and he didn't really have the personnel. He didn't have the corners where he could go ahead and play man coverage, right? You don't want to leave guys like, who do we have last year? Jeez, Terrence Mitchell and Desmond King on the outside there on their own, right? You really can't. But now you got this alpha dog in Stingley. You can trust him in those man coverage situations, leave him one-on-one on an island. That's what Lovie Smith said, like in that exact interview that you referenced. He said he wants to be able to leave his corner, on their own and shadow that wide receiver 1. So I'm excited to see it. Really high hopes for Derek Stingley. What else was I going to say? I was going to say something else. I can't remember it. Let's move on to Kenyan Green. We mentioned. Do you think? Okay, I like the Kenyan Green pick a lot. You said he might be a sleeper. Do you see him? Where do you see him starting? Where do you see his best position at as a rookie?
Man, I think he will provide the most value, probably when you combine skill set and value of the position, probably at right tackle.
Okay.
But like I said, man, he can get you through some games at left tackle, and he can also play either guard position. So that's why I thought it was a great pick. But if I had to talk about value and how the NFL values tackles and they're more rare to find, and then you talk about traditionally your right tackle being your run game tackle, kind of your road grader type. I think his best position, how he would best help the team, will probably be as a right tackle. But man, just the way Texas A&M used him last year, it seems as though if any offensive lineman got hurt for Texas A&M, it was used him to kind of fill that hole, right? And he played every position. And man, I can't stress enough how difficult it is for players to go from the right tackle with their left hand or their right foot being dominant, going to the left tackle and their left hand and right foot being dominant. And he did it masterfully. So man, I'm have no concerns about Kenyan Green wherever he plays.
Yeah, his versatility is definitely one of his biggest strengths. It's crazy that they moved him around so much, and he, didn't always really get a chance to, get comfortable, build continuity at one position. Like you said, it's so much easier than it sounds. Like to a lot of fans, like, oh, just switching from left tackle to right tackle, like it doesn't make too much of a difference on what most people think. But man, the technique, the muscle memory, all of that involved, it's completely different. So the Texans have not been the best about keeping their offensive linemen in one position and allowing them to kind of develop at that position. They drafted Titus Howard in the first round of 2019. They moved him around everywhere, man. Right tackle, left guard, left tackle. And we've seen that he's kind of best as a tackle. So in my eyes, I think Tunsil should be the left tackle, Laramie Tunsil. Titus Howard stays at right tackle for you. I think he's a good pass protector there. And then move Kenyan Green inside at guard. I think that's really where I would like to see him best. He's a big body. I think he'd be able to, create the vertical displacement that you need in the interior to kind of to improve our run game, because we have the league worst run game, man. We need those road graders inside. So I would like him there. But then, like you said, like he gives you the versatility, whether Tunsil or Titus are extended past their current deals. Both their deals are done in 2024. So he can kick back out there.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it gives the Texans versatility moving forward.
Yes,
They can
sir.
almost, pick who they want to extend, right? And be like,
Yeah.
whoever doesn't take the deal or the number that we set it at, we can
Mhm.
always revert back and slide Kenyan Green into whatever hole we have.
100%, 100%. So I'm super excited about that pick. I think he's going to be a long-time starter for us, no matter where he plays. And he's a perfect fit for the gap power run scheme that Pep Hamilton is brilliant. So big fan of that pick as well. Quickly, we'll move on to Jalen Pitre, and he was like my guy throughout this entire draft process since I first watched him. And man, he's just one of those players that I kind of gravitate towards these smaller hybrid players that play, way above their weight class and what they're listed as. And I feel like his comparisons he gets a lot, Tyrann Mathieu, Buda Baker. I see some Kenny Moore a little bit as well. This nickel safety outside linebacker hybrid. Where do you kind of see Jalen Pitre succeeding the best for the Texans, or is it kind of everywhere in that defense?
Yeah, I think them selecting Jalen Pitre, and when they selected him, that's when I kind of knew things would be different from a strictly cover two
Yep.
type defense, because this is such a versatile player. Like you said, he can play in the nickel, he can play as that high safety. But if you watch the Baylor film, he spent majority of his time in the box, right? And
Yep.
they put him close to the football, and he was kind of like that see ball, chase ball, get football. And he's
Mhm.
such a high level motor guy that he made the play a lot. Like, there was a reason why
Yeah.
this guy was named as an All-American football player. He's not, well, his film doesn't say he's a traditional safety, but
Mhm.
I think he's a good football player, and that's why I like the pick. And then also, man, I had the opportunity, because that was one of my question marks. Him heading into I guess you would say, the draft season or the off season, was, can he cover? Because he didn't do much of it at Baylor.
Yep.
But watching him at the Senior Bowl, he did a very good job of it. So I was like, okay, you know what? This guy can, play multiple positions, and he can give you versatility on the back end. And you notice now in NFL, they're going to these kind of three safety looks, or
Mhm.
kind of big nickels, or kind of
Yep.
whatever you want to call them, with that additional safeties on the field. And I think he fits in perfectly for that. And like I said, man, it's just, I think that's kind of a projection of what the Texans defense is going to look like. It's going to be very
Yeah.
multiple. So I'm not expecting just strictly cover two next year.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully that's the case. Lovey, that's what he's talking. That's what he's saying. I want to see him walk the walk now, because a
See if he
lot of time it
revert
can
back
just
to
be
his
coach
old
speak.
ways, huh?
Sorry, say that again.
I said, see if he revert back to his old ways.
Exactly. Because Petrie and even the next guy we'll talk about in Christian Harris, I feel like a lot of those, I'm going to lump these two together, but a lot of their value comes from blitzing. Both really,
Yeah.
really good blitzers. Absolutely love Petrie as a blitzer, whether he's as an outside linebacker, as that star kind of linebacker corner, nickel corner hybrid, or even from deep. He's a really, really good blitzer. Times the snap well. He's explosive. He's got good closing speed. And like you said, the motor, like that guy will chase the ball out the stadium. So I love him in that sense. I love Christian Harris as well in that sense. And I'm curious because Lovie Smith has never really been a big blitzer. He's always kind of relied on his front four to get pressure, and then he can drop the other 7 defenders in coverage. But yeah, I think I really hope he doesn't revert to his old ways. I hope he can blitz a lot more. We finished like 27th in blitz percentage last year,
Yeah.
so hopefully they can get that up a little bit and utilize those guys to their strengths. But yeah, let's segue into Christian Harris. I believe no, it was John Metchie before. We'll talk about Christian Harris and we'll go back to John Metchie just because we're on the topic. But what were your thoughts on Christian Harris, linebacker out of Alabama?
Yeah, man, I think his athleticism, it jumps off the field to you immediately. You know that this guy's a high level athlete. I liked him in space too. I thought he had really good closing speed to the ball carrier, which is something that's important. You always want to see your defenders accelerating to the ball
Yes.
carrier, and not something that you would call a same speed football player, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing that a lot with Christian Harris. They say in the run game, can he improve some?
Yeah.
Yes. But I think Lovey will be able to work on him, and reverting back to that interview, I'm more than sure your listeners are gonna go listen to that interview now. I've known him because he's actually from Louisiana, and we recruited him in
Okay.
high school, so I've been knowing him a while. And he's still the same person, and that's a person that has a love for the game. And he talked about that in his interview. That, man, he wants to get better. Like he's going to be picking Lovie Smith's brain, and Lovie Smith has a history of dealing with some pretty good linebackers. When you talk about a Brian Urlacher or a Lance Briggs, right? Everybody forgets about Lance Briggs and that Chicago defense. And then you mix in Christian Harris' athleticism. I think Lovie Smith could really groom this guy to potentially be a high-level linebacker, especially in his defense.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, when I initially saw the pick happen, like you see a 3rd round pick, I feel like a lot of the fan base had the expectation that he might start right away. But I feel like you said, with the kind of improvement areas that he can have in the run game, I kind of wouldn't expect Christian Harris to start right away. But I think this is a long-term pick, and he can be a starter next year and going forward. I think he can get groomed by the veterans, like you said, and he's he seems like a great person on top of also just being a great player. And that was kind of the first initial thoughts I heard when I listened to that interview today. Is like, man, he is everything. He has all the intangibles that the Texans have been preaching about adding to their team. They've been talking about having good people who are hard workers, dedicated to their craft, willing to do what's right for the team and put the team first. And that's exactly who it seems like Christian Harris is. So I'm excited for that. I kind of wanted to pick your brain a little bit on what you saw that he can work on in the run game, because I absolutely agreed. I think it kind of starts with his eyes, and how he can kind of get tricked sometimes and kind of be maybe not fully engaged with his keys and make the right decisions all the time. Is that kind of what you saw as well? Or there's some other stuff there? I know his tackling issues as well. He can be a bit better about securing the tackle. He's usually, he can fly to the ball, but sometimes he can secure that a bit better. Was there anything else that you saw you want to point out?
And I think it's just him making the decision quicker to pull his trigger downhill. Well, one thing I always like to look at my linebackers is their ability to play downhill and make tackles as close to the line of scrimmage as possible. And they usually translate to processing skills. But we know Alabama has they run a very, I wouldn't say very, but a complex defense as far as, just having that nose tackle. Then you're talking about 2-gap, and then you're talking about usually the linebackers have to read which way the nose tackle goes at times, right? And so I'm wondering if that played a part into it, because whenever you seen Christian Harris decide he was going to go, he went, was full speed. It was a good knockback tackle, and you seen, the strength and the power, athleticism that he really had. And then there were times where he was real hesitant, and you seen the guard work up to him, and then, it was issue for him to get off of blocks a little bit. So I'm wondering if, Lovie Smith is in his 4-3 scheme. I know that things are a little bit simplified for linebackers at times up front, because, those defensive linemen are already in gaps, and you kind of know if the run goes this way, I got this gap. If it goes the other way, I got this gap. So it may actually help him being in a 4-3 scheme, and he'll be able to use the athleticism and be more of a free flow type of guy.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about that one gapping scheme. He can kind of think less and just react more and play more instinctual. And I think that's where Christian Harris absolutely is at his best. That's why I liked him the best as when he's blitzing, because when he can just have his assignment to blitz and know maybe there's 2 decisions you kind of have to make off that, but depending on his read, but when he can just fly to the ball, that dude is like a rocket. Oh my God. He's crazy. He can scoot. God damn. And he's a former safety, right? So he's still kind of working through all of the mental aspects of the linebacker play. So that's a pick that I'm really excited about in the long term. I think we'll see really great returns for that. The other Alabama draft pick, this was one of my favorite, man, John Metchie. You touched on him really a little bit earlier, but I feel like, man, we were stolen from his hype because of the torn ACL. I feel like if he was able to go through this whole draft process, man, we might be talking about, he might be sneaking into the first round, especially with how many wide receivers went in the first round this year. Do you think John Metchie would have maybe snuck in there, or what do you think about his draft stock?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it. He went number 44, and that was with a torn ACL.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, he was just starting to turn it on.
Yep.
I believe Jamison Williams did he get suspended, or got kicked out of the Auburn game? I don't know if he was injured, might have been injured also. Whatever it was, I know he didn't finish the Auburn game, and then they had to rely on Metchie, and you seen Metchie step up as the number 1 wide receiver, and I think that was a turning point game for him. Like, because even when he entered into the SEC championship game, he was playing really well until he got hurt. And then the torn ACL. But this guy, his physical profile, I dare you to match him as far as route running up with anybody else in his draft. And I promise you'll probably say this guy's the better route runner, just because how explosive he is out of his cuts. And that's so important, man, just to make a cut and then explode and running away from the defenders. I thought he was really good at that. And then there were times where I think he was playing Tennessee. I can't remember if it was this past year or the year before. And the cornerbacks were like 12, 15 yards off of him. And he was so explosive that even with the corners 12, 15 yards off of him, the corners were still bailing out of there, with like 7 yards of cushion.
They're scared. They're nervous.
Yeah, they were nervous. And then he was still just sitting it down, just for a quick 10-yard hitch route, boom, touch it, turn up field, man. I just love the short area quickness that this guy has. So the one deficiency, like I said, is the catching traffic. But if he can do that, this can be a special football player. That is the only thing he's missing, is being able to catch the football in traffic, the focus, being able to haul in those tough passes. But man, you talk about a special athlete, he's definitely that.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's such a well-rounded wide receiver. You really touched on it. The route running, the releases at the stem, all phases of the route, man. Like he's got it. He's nuanced, absolutely. And then the athleticism to create after the catch. I think he'll do really well for Pep Hamilton's scheme that wants to utilize the quick game a lot, get touches, manufacture touches on screens and whatnot. So I think he's a great fit, and I think he'll help out Davis Mills a lot. I think it was interesting. We kind of saw the impact that losing John Metchie and Jameson Williams had on Bryce Young late in the playoffs, in the college football playoffs. We saw the impact and how he wasn't able to be the Bryce Young we saw win the Heisman Trophy. You know what I mean? So that kind of speaks to John Metchie's impact on Alabama. And I think he'll have a similar impact for the Texans. And then, I guess touching on his catch and traffic ability, is that something that, there's certain skills, certain traits that you can kind of improve upon and work on in as you transition to the NFL? Would you say working on the hands, the concentration element of it, are there things that you can do, certain techniques, like I guess in terms of how you prepare to catch the ball, how your hands are positioned? Would you say that that's a pretty improvable trait?
Man, I'm going to be completely honest with you. That is something that I am still deciding for myself, because the variance is so wide, man. Like you get guys that improve on it instantly, and then you get guys that they can't catch, but you take a bet on them, you gamble on the fact that they'll improve on it, and they don't. And I'm still trying to, figure that's one of the small things in evaluations that I'm actually still trying to figure out, because it does vary so much. And I mean, we hear statistics all the time that, it's like Terrell Owens or something like that back in the early 2000s. He led the NFL in drops, but he also had, 1,500 yards receiving. So it's like, okay, so, what are we doing with this? But I will say this, that the way NFL offenses are designed now, they can get guys open in space a whole lot easier than what it was, in the early 2000s, the 90s, and so forth and so on. So I expect, you talked about Pep Hamilton, to do some creative things with him. And if that's something that they notice on film, like, okay, we're going to do more things to get him open in space. And this is the thing. John Metchie can get open.
Yeah.
He has no problem.
No problems.
If you design it, he can definitely get open. So he still has a high chance of being a very productive football player.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I feel like when you break down a wide receiver's, like, to the very bare bone, what they need to do, their job, get open and catch the football.
Yes.
And that man can get open with the best of them. Jeez, I would hate to have to cover him. You talk about the Auburn game. Oh my gosh, I have so much I want to talk about with Metchie. But you talk about the Auburn game, that whip route to finish off the game versus McCreary. And I love Roger McCreary, man. I thought he's one of the better, just pure coverage corners in this class. I don't care about his arm length, his measurements, man. That guy can ball. But he put him on skates, dude.
Man, and that's why I talk about the suddenness and just the route running. And man, I just remember watching that stuff in person, like I said, with the receivers we had at LSU, and you can see it. Like, some guys got it, just when we talk about the rapid foot fire at the line of scrimmage and just naturally being able to get open and set defenders up, and then some of them don't. And I'll tell you, like, he might have been one of the first players I watched at the Draft Network, officially being a part of the staff and everything. And I told him, I'm like, because I think he was like off of our radar at the moment, because he was a year away. And I was like, man, this dude is going to be a dude. Like, because you just see it. You just see it in the route running. And I always try to envision myself, playing defensive back, and like, how do you cover that, right? And you see a guy and it's like, man, that'd be difficult to tell a defensive back to match up with it. Then that's when you know you have a dude.
Yeah, 100%. He will invoke fear into NFL DBs. I'm confident about that. I'm confident about
Yeah.
that. And then the last thing I want to touch on him before we move on, you mentioned kind of creating space for Metchie and making it so that he doesn't have to be in all these catch and traffic situations. And I feel like the Texans are set up to do that pretty well with the other wide receivers that they have on the roster. You can have Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins on the outside and then put Metchie in the slot there. I like Metchie's versatility. I think he can be a slot guy and a little bit outside. Probably, maybe you don't want him as your X all the time, obviously, but as a Z and as a slot guy, you think he has that versatility to move around a little bit? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. That's something
Yeah.
I put in my in my reports, that we
Mm-hmm.
had to turn in, was that I think he can play both the Z and the Y.
Yeah.
He can do both things. And honestly, you see that he's really effective, playing on the outside because, man, like when you talk about just like throwing the deep ball, like, you're talking about go ball, skinny post,
Mm-hmm.
he can really do that because, man, his release is so quick and so explosive
Yeah.
that when he gets on top of that corner, it's lights out. So yeah, he can possibly, that may be his best position, being on the outside. But I mean, that's all the reasons why he was a second round pick with a torn ACL, and I definitely believe he could have went in the first round for sure.
Hell yeah. Love it, Keith. Love it. Big fans of John Metchie here. I'm excited because he's one of the few, I believe, Asian Canadian players. And I'm Asian
Yeah.
Canadian myself. So it's
Okay.
cool to see that on your team and have a guy like that to root for. So I'm looking forward to it. And he's actually his hometown. I lived there for 4 or 5 years too.
Are you
So
talking about in Taiwan or in Canada? Which one?
sorry, yeah, in Brampton, in Canada.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Now he
Yeah.
definitely had a very extensive and interesting background, but
Right.
I mean, all of that, make you into a well-rounded person.
Definitely. And that's something that the coaching staff and everyone around him, preached about with his time at Alabama. And we know the Texans love that. So it'll be perfect. I think it's a match made in heaven, really, with these two guys.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on after then Damian Pierce. Let's touch on him and then we'll probably close this out with some rapid fire questions and get out of here. But Damian Pierce, man, this was an interesting. This running back pick made me really happy because I feel like a lot of Texans fans, they wanted us to go running back early, whether it's Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker in the top of the second round. And my stance throughout this entire process is that, man, we're not like a running back away from having a good run game. The run game is, there's so many pieces to the puzzle, and our O-line is not good enough to support, a guy like Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and turn him into a 1,000-yard rusher. Like a lot of our Texans fans, we're so frustrated with passing on Jonathan Taylor a few years ago. And we thought, man, if we just took Jonathan Taylor, we took that high second round running back, we got a running back for the future, man. But it doesn't work like that. You put Jonathan Taylor on this Texans, it's not going to work the same, right? So I was glad that we waited off to the fourth round, pick up Pierce. We were able to invest in the O-line early with Kenyan Green. And now we go get Pierce, and he's just a perfect scheme fit, I believe, for exactly what we need. The tough, hard-nosed runner. That dude is violent. He will pick up yards after contact between the tackle runner, just get north-south with no nonsense. So I was a big fan of him. What do you think he kind of adds to this Texans backfield now with Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead as well?
Yeah, I think it's really just some reliability and knowing what you're getting in and game out. Look, there's nothing sexy or pretty about Damian Pierce's game, but guess what? It's effective.
Yeah.
And he has the ability. It's something I always like in my running backs: the ability to make that lateral cut and then get vertical. And he can do that. He can make that lateral cut, make the defender miss, and then get vertical upfield. So, and also another, I guess, really good trait of his is his ability just to naturally break tackles. And I think that's something you can't really teach. But when you watch the film, you see defenders just kind of bounce off of him, and he kind of absorbs that tackle, keep it moving. He can kind of, spin move out of it. He can, like I said, there's a jump cut or something like that. So I think he's a very effective football player. And I'll tell you this, talking to all of the guys that, attended University of Florida, the football players, through this draft cycle, and I would ask them about Damian Pierce because I know what I seen on film, and then I knew the production wasn't there, so I was a little bit confused. Yeah. All of them vouched for him. They said, "Man, look, he definitely should have got more carries. We believe that if we'd have, ran the offense through him, he probably would have been. We'd have been 2 or 3 games better." And that's high praises, when you talk about just a running back.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think he's a very talented football player. And when you think about those backs that go later, that have, spurts of being effective, like Alfred Morris, and
Mm.
you know, think about those guys. They end up running for 1,400 yards in the NFL, and it's like, man, this guy fell to the fourth, fifth, sixth round. How is that possible? And it's a lot of the same attributes that Damian Pierce has: the ability to break tackles, make people miss, and is a hard tackle in the open field. So I really like Damian Pierce.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I feel like when you're talking about running backs, at least for me, like it starts with the vision, and then it starts with the burst. Can they get upfield quickly? And then I kind of lump it into finishing in terms of,
Yeah,
what can you do versus that first defender that you see. Finish that rep. Is it like mauling him over, like lower your shoulder and finish it tough, just fall forward? Is it a jump cut and evade him, or what it may be? And so I think he has all those aspects, and then the play strength, like you mentioned, to break tackles, man. Like he's built low to the ground, low center of
yeah,
gravity. He's a bowling ball is how I like to think of him. He's just gonna roll over these defenders, man. So I think he's got all those traits that you like. Like you said, the production might not be there, but that's not really the end all be all. Every
man.
player is in a different situation. At the end of the day, for me, it comes down to the traits, what you see on film, and if those translate to the NFL. And I absolutely believe Pierce has all of that. So I'm excited to see it. I don't think he's going to start week 1 for the Texans per se. They'll probably split that between Mack and Burkhead, but halfway through the season, third of the way through the season, you will start to see him get sprinkled in there, and he'll be a nice surprise. And I think he'll play so well that he's going to kind of force the coaching staff's hand to give him more touches in that committee.
I agree 100%. He'll be. If I had to forecast it, he'll probably be the starter come next year.
Yep.
But you want to take his time, let him get him acclimated. And one thing that's underrated with him is his pass pro. Man,
Yes.
he dominated at the Senior
Bowl.
Bowl.
Yep.
Yes, he killed it. So I thought that was pretty impressive and pretty amazing. And that's going to allow him to get on the field also. Because when you're talking about a young quarterback like Davis Mills, now you're already invested in Kenyan Green. You have the 2 tackles. You're trying to make sure this guy's as protected as possible because you want him to be word on the peasantry, right? And throwing the football, delivering, get through his progressions. And you need running backs that can protect. So, man, I think it was just a good overall asset. Like I said, it may not be any sexy highlights, but there are going to be times in the games where Houston Texans fans are going to be like, man, damn, I'm glad we have him.
Exactly. He's tough. He's dependable, and he's just nasty, man. He will get you those tough yardage for sure. Churn out those 3, 4, 5 yard carries and just kind of move the sticks. And then, I love what you mentioned about the pass protection. Like I thought he was a good processor in terms of picking up his assignments, watching his film in Florida, and then he brings the nasty. Like just like how he finishes runs tough, like he will put defenders in the dirt when he's blocking, man. Watching at the Senior Bowl, would you say he was the best running back at the Senior Bowl? I thought he was.
I thought so. I thought he solidified himself, and he went in the 4th round. I gave him a clear 3rd round grade after that performance in the Senior Bowl, and he was one of those guys that you circle like, man, you kind of go through the process, and you like, man, if I was working for a team, I hope that nobody else was paying attention to that. So I could grab him as quick as possible. So I definitely had him highlighted when I left the Senior Bowl.
Yes, sir. Here's my RB3. What was he for you?
I can't remember. He might have been. I think what I said, he finished like he got drafted number 6, so he might have been 5 or 6 for me. That's because I had other guys too, like Zamir White from Georgia. I really liked him also. But man, it was a good bucket of running backs. To say that this was a quote unquote down class, I feel like that if you didn't swing at those first running backs as far as Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, you still found really good value at the back end of the 3rd round into the 4th round. And so, like I said, that's why I agree with the Texans pick so much with getting him in the 4th.
100%. Absolutely love that one. And then moving to their 5th round pick, Thomas Booker. This was one of, I think I could see this one from a mile away because this dude is arguably one of the smartest players in the class. And Nick Caserio has been preaching, adding smart people and kind of have those, players that are coaches on the field as well. And that's kind of how I see Thomas Booker. Defensive tackle out of Stanford, versatile guy, athletic guy, really good run defender, just super disciplined in his run fits and his assignments. Always, you're never going to catch him out of position. He's always in the right place at the right time. So I really like that addition. I think he can be a good rotational 3-tech defensive tackle for us. Where do you see him fitting best in for Lovie Smith's 4-3? Because he played all over for Stanford on the edge and kind of 3-4 defensive end as well. Where do you see him best?
Yeah, I think he's a 4-3. Defensive tackle, probably a 3-tech. I love his athleticism. I thought when he decided to get upfield, kind of shoot those gaps and really get penetration, he can be really disruptive. And
Mhm.
I thought that he had a lot of functional strength, meaning that he's not a guy that, in the weight room, they could just move a lot of weight, but then they don't know how to activate it on the field. This is a guy that
Mm.
knows how to activate that strength on the field. So you would see him kind of contort his body in different situations, and he was still able to hold the point of attack. So that let me know that he's
Yeah.
really strong through his core and in his hands and also in his lower body. I thought he was pretty good against the run.
Mhm.
But I think he's a high upside football player. This is another guy
Yeah.
that, similar to Christian Harris, that put in this 4-3 scheme where things are a little bit simplified for them. I
Mhm.
think they can flourish. So, man, there's another pick that I would have definitely picked this guy. So, like I said, man, the Houston Texans, I believe they stole my draft board, man, because
Ooh,
I,
goddamn. And
I
that's good to know
yeah,
because Crystal Ball Keith out here, he knows the future.
yeah.
So
I definitely like the Thomas Booker pick. And look, we had this talk as a staff.
Mhm.
When did we foresee him? Being a starter like that. That's high. That's how high do I think of
Yeah.
him. And I think he's another back end of the season guy. Once he really gets acclimated with everything, you can see him take majority of the reps because I think he could be that type of football player.
Damn. Okay, so I feel like for me to get to that same stance that you're at, I need to see him develop a lot more in terms of the pass rush side of things. I feel like having a plan, being better with his hands in terms of the timing, the placement, and then having counter moves. What were your thoughts on him as a pass rusher?
Yeah, I would say it was tough because you watched him at Stanford. Like you said, he moved around in so many
Yeah,
different positions, right? And
yeah.
I always talk about the athlete, like and especially with defensive linemen, what position is my defensive lineman most likely to win, right? And when
Mm.
we see him at defensive end, I don't think he's athletic enough just to beat offensive tackles around the edge, right?
Yep.
But if
Yep.
you kick him inside, and now you have guards that aren't as athletic, can he beat some of those guards? And for me, I think he can.
Hmm.
I think that's why I was higher on him, was because I thought that he had athletic upside on the interior of the defensive line. So it was a projection standpoint, but then you also look at the athleticism and does he flash it? And I seen flashes of it, and then now you have it's the nuances, right? Now you get into
Yeah.
schemes and what they ask the defensive lineman to do at Stanford versus what they'll actually do at at um at the Texans, and maybe wouldn't have been a great fit for everybody, right? But I
Hmm.
think in this scheme, I think is a really good fit, and that's just a testament to the Houston Texans front office for finding guys that fit in this scheme.
For sure, for sure. I think he'll definitely do well with his in a one gapping scheme because his get off was good. His get off was
Yeah,
good. He can get off the ball when he really wants to. So that's what you're looking for in terms of those raw, physical traits of projecting that. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I guess in terms of a starter, like I feel like now he'll be kind of behind Malik Collins. He's kind of
mhm.
penciled in as the starter as a 3 tech DT, and I think that's a pretty perfect guy for him to learn from, to
Uh,
learn how to
yeah,
play in that one gapping attacking scheme. Just get upfield, be quick, be fast, and then kind of learn the pass rush side of things from him because that's Collins' bread and butter. So I'm pretty bullish on that. And I feel like with Booker as well, he'll be really good on stunts and twists and
mhm.
stuff like that because he's so smart. And then, like you said, he's so good at contorting his body and still staying balanced and being able to penetrate as well. So I like that for him. Okay, let's finish it off really quickly. Two guys I didn't get to watch as much on throughout this draft process, but our last two picks, Tegan Quitoriano out of Oregon State, the tight end. He's billed as, your typical inline blocking tight end. He's 6'5", 230 plus, 240 plus. Big time special teamer as well, and that's what you're kind of looking for here at the 6th round. That's always a plus. What were your thoughts on Tegan? Is he a player that you watched a lot this year?
Yeah, no, I think you explained him perfectly. Like he's an inline guy. Then you talked about once again referencing Pep Hamilton
Yeah.
and what they want to do. You can put him on the field and he can win some of those battles with defensive ends, right? Or just be able to climb to the
Mhm.
second level, be able to place that block. And then they have another athletic tight end, and I believe Brevin Jordan.
Yes, sir.
So if you want to go to those 12 personnel type situations, or Pep Hamilton, even when he was at Stanford, right? He did a lot of
Mhm.
different things. He went 22 personnel,
Yeah.
you know, 13 personnel, he did a bunch of different things. So I think this was just another addition for the versatility element of what they're trying to do offensively. So man, like you said, you talk about the back end of the 5th, 6th round. you find these guys that fit in your scheme. You know they can do one thing well, and then you just hope that they can groom into the other part. But guess what? If he plays underneath, man, you have a young quarterback, and that's another outlet guy for him to get the ball to quickly, and just kind of like that, that safety blanket that if everything is covered down the field, then I could just dump it off to this guy, give him a move, give me 5-6 yards. So I thought it was a safe pick, but it was also another pick that kind of translated to what they want to do offensively.
Yeah, definitely. He was a pretty talented basketball player in high school, and you kind of see that on his film with his strong hands and how he can win at the catch point. So I like that point as well. I think it'd be a good safety blanket for Davis Mills. But yeah, that was another pick where like the idea of the player makes sense for what this team needs.
Yeah.
And so I thought the Texans overall had their draft class pinpointed like their weaknesses well and try to supplement that without reaching too high in many of these picks. So I like that in general. And then the last pick, Austin Deculus out of LSU. What you think about Austin, man?
Yeah, I thought this was another good pick for where they got him at, right? I believe what it was the 6th, 7th round, I believe.
Yeah, mid late 6th round. Yep.
Yeah, and be able to, just kind of snatch him up right there. And listen, at the end of the day, the Houston Texans, they told us they had a theme. They want players that played a lot of football at a high level, very experienced, and they come from winning programs and traditions. If you just look at the players they selected, and Austin Deculus fits that. Now, reason why he fell, obviously, because technique-wise, it's not up to par with your one at a high level tackle, and then there were a lot of misses from him on film. But I mean, you still have to give him credit that he played 4 or 5 years at LSU against high level competition. So maybe there won't be much he hasn't seen on the next level. And if you can just find a backup offensive tackle, premier position, this late in the draft, a high experienced guy, then you take him. So I don't think he's like, we talked about Titus Howard, we talked about Laramie Tunsil. So obviously he won't be the starter. But if you could just get this guy in, if you're able to just squeeze out, hey, man, Titus Howard is out, this week. We just need to put somebody at right tackle for the time being. And if you could get him, through a game, then you had much success with your 6th, 7th round draft pick.
Exactly. That's really all you can hope for is the best of it. Hopefully you get a swing tackle. A lot of people project him to guard. Do you think that might be his best position at the future, or because I know he has some pad level issues.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's going to work inside.
Yeah, and that's why I wouldn't do it. And obviously, I've seen this guy every day at practice. I think he's just too long, and then the leverage issue being on the interior of the offensive line will present him problems. I know the guard comes from because he's a big body, and he may be better going forward than going backwards. But I'm not sure if it'll be a whole lot better at guard. So I would leave him at tackle. See if you can get something out of him. Like I said, man, it was a 6th, 7th round pick.
Yeah.
That's what you use those picks for. This late in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. And then he seemed like a very good guy in terms of just good vibes. Good vibes, good hard worker. Yeah. Is that what you got as well?
That's exactly what he is. Very, very good person, hard worker. Never any negative energy. Loves football. Like you said, he could have came out 2-3 years ago in the draft, right? But he continued to come back. Wanted to work on his craft. So there is a for the love of the game element. Played high school football in the state of Texas. I believe it was Houston. He just, man, he's a local kid. So I think everything about it just makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you said, there's kind of two big themes for this Texans draft class is they got, young players who've had really high level experience in the SEC. 6 out of their 9 draft picks were from the SEC. And then the other thing is all the hometown kids, Kenyan Green, Jalen Pitre, and then Austin Deculus as well. So it was really interesting to see what they're building. There's a lot of homegrown talent now on the Texans, and I feel like they're trying to, maybe the talent isn't all fully there right now, but if you have all these guys that are from the same town and they're all passionate about playing for their town, like that added emotional aspect of creating buy-in and whatnot, maybe hopefully that can be somewhat of an advantage for them.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, we see that in the NFL all the time, right? Like there's an upset every week where we're scratching our head, like, how the hell
exactly
beat that team? And you talk passion, and I talked about this earlier, man. That makes up so much of the football game, and that's just the want to and showing up and wanting to win. So, like you said, if you find these guys, these young men, and it means something to them, and they want to be winners, and like I said, that's why they came from winning programs. That losing is not a standard for them, and I think that that's something that the Texans kind of had to get rid of, right? The one thing you kind of hate to be is that franchise that when people sign a contract, they know that they just got to make it through 17 weeks to get their paycheck and then go on for the next year. You never want that moniker, but that's a very real thing in the NFL. So man, you got to get those winners in there. Those guys that like, man, they hate losing. Like every time they lose, and, it takes a little bit out of them each week. I definitely like the theme of this draft.
100%, 100%. All right, let's transition to the last segment here, and then we'll get you out of here. I know you're a very busy man, so I don't want to hold you for much longer. But okay, this will be the rapid fire question. So I'm gonna hit you with a question, and you just hit me with the name of the draft pick you believe answers the question, and that's it. It'll be really simple. Favorite draft pick from the Houston Texans? Who was it?
Oh man, rapid fire. When you consider value and everything, I gotta go Derek Stingley. I'm going Derek Stingley.
Okay, that's your guy. QB CB1 all year, huh?
Yeah, CB1.
Let's go. That's your guy. That's your guy. I love it. Most pro ready. Who do you think out of this group is the most pro ready to start?
Kenyan Green. He has the nastiness and the tenacity to be an impact starter instantly.
Okay. Green over your guy Stingley.
Yeah, I had to switch up. I didn't want to see the same.
Okay. Fair enough. This one you might revert back to Stingley, but who has the highest ceiling out of the draft picks this year?
Oh wow. Because I told you I love this draft class.
Yeah.
A lot of high upside guys. Yeah, I'm gonna go Derek Stingley again just because you talk about a potential all pro, best cornerback in the NFL type situation.
For sure. Do you have a player comp for him?
Man, I gave him Stephon Gilmore.
Okay.
I thought Stephon Gilmore was a great comp for him. And all pro, best corner in the league, dominated. I think it's that.
There you go. That's what I kept saying. Is Nick Casario's want to get his next J.C. Jackson, next Stephon Gilmore. That's how he's built those Patriots.
Right? Just Stephon Gilmore, Derek Stingley, Nick Casario.
Yes, sir. A
lot of the same things in him.
Exactly. So he's gonna want to build his defense around Stingley, 100%. Okay, and then last question. This one is: how many rookie starters do you see? So how many of these draft picks do you see can start as a rookie, and then how many are kind of eventual starters? Let's say year 2 and on.
What's funny is we actually played. We did this on one of our staff calls.
Oh shit!
You said year 2, right?
Yes, sir.
I think 7.
7, Jesus, of the 9. I love it. Okay, so
I think they got 7. So from all the way to Derek Stingley to Tommy Booker, I think those are 7 potential starters in year 2.
Man, that's great. That's a great haul to get 7 starters.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. What was the year that you guys used on your call? Was it year 2, year 3?
We did the back end of the first year. So I think we did it by like week 12 because, you never know how the season goes. So it was like, okay, if they're out of playoff contention, do they start getting ready for next year?
Right.
So we did it like week 12. And how many guys do you think?
Okay. I got you. Okay, so we did year 2. And then from day 1, do you think there's anyone in here? Probably Stingley, probably Green, Pitre, anyone else you think? Or is that pretty much it?
Man, I have to be honest with you. If John Metchie is healthy, I don't think you can keep that type of athlete on the field. And I mean, and let's just keep it honest. Offenses, they run 3-4 wide receivers anyway, so you can't tell me he won't be your 3rd or 4th wide receiver.
Yeah.
And then I think Christian Harris has a real shot. And you just talk about that athleticism, simplifying the game. I'm not sure how that weak side linebacker position looks for the Texans. I know they have a lot of, I'm pretty sure it's veteran guys on like 1-year deals and stuff like that. Yes,
exactly. We got Kenyan Green. I honestly was not expecting anything out of him because he's had a pretty, mediocre career as mainly a special team guy. But then he kind of shocked us all and had a hell of a season in Lovie Smith's scheme. I think getting into that 4-3 scheme, getting away from the Miami Dolphins 3-4 scheme with Brian Flores. With us, he put up 108 tackles, 3 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. He had a very good statistical season, career best season. So I think he's going to kind of hold down that will linebacker spot. But like you said, he's only on 1-year deal. So how I envision it is Christian Harris is mainly a sub package player in year 1, utilize his coverage and his blitzing skills. And maybe he can start later in the end of the season, but progressing into year 2, he learns from Kenyan Green how to, read his run keys and process all those mental aspects of it. In year 2, he's more of a starter as Kenyan Green signs elsewhere.
I agree with you.
All righty. We went through every pick. We went through all the questions here. All right, perfect. That's it. Keith, man, it was great talking ball with you. I appreciate it. We're going to have to do this again. The listeners can find you on Twitter at the Talent Code, I believe. That's
The Talent Code, yes.
Talent Code. Yes, sir. Awesome. All righty. Thank you again, man. Thank you for joining me.
All right, no problem, man. I appreciate you having me on. Hit me up. Let me know.
100%. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't, or check out the audio version. Believe in Texans on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That will do it for me. Take care, everyone. Come back for more. And remember, the film don't lie.